Interesting. Yeah, Aashna.
Aashna?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a sauna.
It's not so.
It said Aashna.
She sounds like she's Jewish.
Aashna.
Aashna.
Kind of like a
The one thing about her is didn't really have nonprofit experience, right?
Except for working in nonprofits herself. I mean, being a volunteer, but you're right. She doesn't have any.
Yeah.
Working in that environment.
She has not. Yeah, she doesn't.
Yeah.
And you know, the other difference with Aashna, she does not have any of the what's Hollywood contacts. Yeah, she doesn't know this community. So that's, we'll talk about that after I finish the interviews. Let's see how she, how these two do. Oh. Oh, what am I looking for? Let's see.
All right, mic check.
Cha-cha.
That's what we need.
Cha-cha.
Perfect. Sounds good.
I need to get a new phone, but I'm waiting until the fall because, of course, they're saying all the new iPhones come out. But this phone is just, it won't even charge anymore. It's probably, I think it's something that this piece here is just kind of screwed up.
well, that's an easy thing.
Is it? How?
They just pop it out and put it in the new one.
Really? Here it does this thing where it just doesn't connect. It's probably, I mean, it's a couple of years, 3 or 4 years old.
Maybe the connection's just loose.
Probably.
Bent too many times.
Oh, I hear footsteps.
And your dress shoes.
Footsteps in the hall.
Interrupt you? No.
Thank you. Excuse me, not wearing a tie.
Hi.
How you doing?
Excuse me for not wearing shoes.
Exactly, not a problem.
You're wearing shoes.
I'm wearing flip-flops.
Hi, good to see you.
Well, nice to meet
How are you?
Oh,
We're all set up
Yeah.
for the podcast. All right, I love
you.
it.
Yeah, let's just wait a second.
Sure.
Do you need any,
Water be great. Is there some over there? I'll get it. No makeup. No, I always come makeup ready.
Oh,
Cool.
there's coffee.
Just blast it out the link to everyone else.
I'll bring it in.
Yeah.
If you order it.
does anyone else want coffee?
I would probably, iced coffee would actually be really nice.
I'm good.
Steve, do you want anything besides water?
Ruggiero spoke to me earlier.
Iced coffee would be great.
He's on a project, and I guess there's been some problem on the project, and he's got to go over there this afternoon, deal with the inspectors and the contractor. And,
Yeah.
just,
No, that's exactly why we're recording. 'Cause
Yeah.
shit happens. Watch your step.
Thank you.
It's got it all set up. I love the 21st century.
You do? Not a lot of people
As long
do.
as somebody like her.
I know, as long as
set
some-
up,
Okay, there you
I
go.
don't know how to set it.
That makes perfect sense.
I still haven't figured out Google Docs. That's how
I know, I noticed that. I
You
was
noticed
like,
that?
I'm so
Google Docs is a
organized.
little hard.
Well, I just can't find it, and I have to go back to the link you sent me. When I'm just on my stuff, I can't,
Well, don't you you just
pull up Drive. Well, that's what I'm not doing. So what do I need bookmark stuff?
There should be like a little star or something. Wait, but see
You're in
the
town for
bookmarks
what?
at the top
Until Saturday, and then I'm going to P-Town.
on the
for-
very, very top of your screen.
Just a week.
for Carnival. And then I'm going to New Orleans right after that for 2 or 3 weeks.
Add
Mhm.
bookmark.
For 7 decades.
Never been.
And then I'll be back here at some point in September after Labor Day.
Good.
You?
Just got back in town.
Yeah, where were you
I
at?
was in New York and London and Amsterdam.
Oh, you were at the AIDS conference. Right. 'Cause I saw
So a
you-
little
Oh,
jet lag.
Thank you.
Still.
Thank you.
We do have a new sweetener.
Thank you.
Are we already live?
Yeah, we could say hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello, viewers.
I'm Steve. What's your name?
Welcome to the Stephen Guy Show.
One whole
Thank
person
you.
watching.
Yes.
Person watching?
One. It's probably Bobby Howard. He's been excited.
You know Bobby Heller?
I don't believe I do. Even if I do. I saw his bio and his picture. I'm just going to keep this. Let's do this. Have a good time.
Should we get the shoe on the road?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's-
Well, thank you, Steve, for coming. We really,
Thank you for
really
having me.
appreciate it. We appreciate your interest in what we're doing. You know, you and I chatted, God, it's probably about 8 months, 7 or 8 months ago.
I feel like it's been a year and a half.
Yeah, maybe it
actually.
was what we're doing and what we want to do. So we're glad that we're finally able to take it to this point and actually sit down officially and talk to you. You want to get started?
Yeah,
You
actually,
met, by the way? Well,
We have.
just now.
Well, we met a few times. We met at, we didn't meet at the AIDS Walk. We met at the disco party.
And also at Dodger.
Yes. And then at Dodger Stadium.
Adjacent.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I remember now.
You were heckling the magician.
No, he gave me a magical rose and then took it back. Like an
know we
Indian
did.
giver. You can't Indian give an Indian.
Okay. Well,
Not wrong.
it's good enough.
There you go.
Sure enough.
I feel very passionately about this, apparently. All right. I think you got the first one.
Well, for sure, it's always interesting.
Doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, my first question, you know, I'm the chair of the board of the
Yes.
organization. So my first question would probably be, knowing what you do now about us and its monument, can you give us what you would probably identify as your 2 or 3 priorities or areas of focus you think you would want to focus on for the first year?
For the first year, knowing what I know and reading both your job description and where you guys have progressed the project, it sounds like you're in a good financial state. And when you say good in a nonprofit sense, that means that you're always compromised, but you're in an okay state. So my first priority would actually really be understanding and strengthening the committees. And knowing a little bit more about how they're operating, how they're meeting their deadlines, and how well they're driving the organization. And I say that because you have a big job in front of you. This is a role that has a very expansive remit, and making sure that that is really, in essence, your support staff and your support system that you're meant to both support and also be helping to drive your work mission along. So I'd be really focusing on that and making sure that's solidly in place. The digital platform, I think, is really an innovative opportunity for you guys to help define yourself differently than any other monuments or memorials that are happening out there, but you guys have always claimed that you are a monument first and foremost. I'd want to make sure that that both the content that's in place and the partnerships that are happening are very strongly stored up so that that component can be built even more so. What you have in place now, I think, is something you guys could go live with, and you have gone live with it. But it's enough if you were to open the memorial now, and the monument rather. I'll do that a few times, so please you can keep me your one. Is it's a defining component, and I think it needs to be one of the strongest things out there as you're hitting the ground and opening the space. And then lastly, I I want to make sure that your key stakeholders are all. That's a very good rate. That's a very good rate. That your key stakeholders are in place, and so that creates a wide remit, making sure that you're stored up with your existing donors, and that you're going forward and helping to appropriately present the successes that you've had in place to help bring in new partners, both from a funding standpoint and as well as a programmatic side. So those would be my three main areas of focus. Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to do this?
That's a great question, Craig. I've always been interested in this project in the very sense that it was a West Hollywood focused opportunity to help give tribute to a disease and those who passed. But also, I think that the city is in a very unique spot, and this group here is in a very unique spot to help define what it is. It's not over. It's a disease that has a past that we can't forget, but it also has a very strong future, and it's still continuing. And we have to make sure that we are sitting right in the middle of that. So the idea that you're creating a monument is excellent, but there are strong educational components that I love about this, and that strongly appeals to me. There are opportunities to take the curriculum that's being put onto your digital platform and have that turned into curriculum in classrooms, curriculum for community centers that goes out and actually engages people, not only about what happened in the past, but how it helps and can lead us into the future. That it's right in the backyard, that it impacts me personally for people that have passed from it. But I think it's a very unique opportunity to take something that could be stagnant and just very front facing and actually have it to be alive and have it have a future and have it continue to be a hopeful platform as well as something that might make a difference in people's lives going forward.
When you say curriculum, it sounds really ambitious and resonates, but I start to wonder how does our little nonprofit, as far as a digital platform, create what could be curriculum in schools? It sounds daunting to do that.
From what you have on the digital platform at this point in time, it really isn't. It is taking what you have created, some of the specific stories. Those are strong pieces of information that be communicated to students that can have an impact. Then from there, you work with both academics and academic institutions or teachers or learning centers to help create guiding questions about what can happen around this. Think of it this way: when you say curriculum, you take the materials that are part of the AIDS Monument now, and you put specific guiding questions, and you go into a class at UCLA, a freshman activism class or an LGBT studies class, and present those things and have them study what is, or go to the website, understand what's on at the AIDS Monument, see the testimony, see the stories, and create writing prompts around that. Not that hard to do. But I think it's the opportunity to both drive what you've built in this space and have it have a larger reach into the community. And we'd be sending out probably board members to go speak to those classes.
Erwin, you got something you want to ask?
So, as you, I think, know, we've operated mostly without a staff. We had an ED for a couple of years. The board members are very actively involved.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of day-to-day work. A lot of the board members are successful in their own right. How do you manage a board like that? And find a way to continue to use their skills and keep them actively involved without burning them out? And how do you assert leadership and put your own stamp on the organization in a situation like that, especially after it's been ongoing for a number of years?
The committee structure is tough. It can be very tough and really rewarding. So a couple of strategies that would need to go forward immediately is how I communicate with that entire group on a weekly basis and on a monthly basis, and also through the committees. But one of the things that I need to get to know about each one of them is sitting down and having a quick conversation with them about where they're at.
Each board member?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're at, what brought them into space, which is fairly clear. You guys promote that. Hearing that, making sure that their commitment to the project is in place, and understanding just a little bit of their needs, and customize them as best as possible. That being said, what needs to come from me are weekly or bi-weekly updates that don't burn out the team. And it's a little bit of a trick for me working on those committees, who are mostly successful volunteers, probably touch this information on the weekend morning and want to talk about it then. So getting out your updates at the end of the week, figuring out if there's a specific crisis that needs to be addressed during that time, and then creating a working hour or a working time to pick up that conversation immediately after. So that's one of the strategies that I go forward with the team, aside from getting to know them a little bit about where they're at. I've worked with large communities before. Each person or large groups, the strength of the committees within each one of those, I think is, as I said, something that I would rely heavily on. How well are they integrating into their committee, and how well are those groups delivering what needs to happen, and then how best can I support that? It's kind of impossible to manage 20 different people all the time, but within a committee structure, it's much easier to do. And if I'm reporting back to those groups and creating certain parameters as to how we can address specific issues, and then what needs to go to committee and what needs to be separate conversations, that's what I would kind of attempt to set up as we come in.
And if, let's say, someone isn't meeting their what they've agreed to do, and they're not reaching their goals, or let's just stay with that. How would you? What's a good strategy you would employ to get them back on track, or to otherwise fix the problem? A good strategy
to employ is, if they're not meeting their goals within the committee structure, is working with the committee head, if it's been brought to my attention in that space, and then having a one-on-one conversation, or a appropriately conversation, how best we can support. If they have, at the beginning of a new relationship of somebody coming in, reaffirm their commitment and let them know that they are on board, or here's my parameters, and they're not meeting that, then those are some of the specific components that you work against, or work with, saying, you said has something changed since the space? And depending upon the individual, or if it's a problem with the committee chair, either it's a one-on-one with myself, or a one-on-one with the appropriate representation, or bringing in the board chair. But I feel like, this is a passionate group that are aligned around specific goals and a mission. And in that space, that's kind of what you adapt to, so that we can accomplish what we all mutually care about.
Yeah, you earlier discussed, and you're obviously aware of our digital platform.
Mm-hmm.
And related to that, content and stories element, that how do you develop a platform to deliver materials, and then B, what materials do we want to deliver? I think when you look at our organization, we've come a long, long way in creating our art piece. It's there, it's going to be refined.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's going to be a project through next EP of getting it built and actually installed successfully.
Mm-hmm.
The big element is this digital platform.
Mhm.
So one of the questions is, and we see this as kind of like project management. It's project management.
Yeah.
Production management in many respects. It's not unlike doing what you do in Hollywood, putting together film or putting together a project. So one of my questions is, both on the funding and resources side, given that that's the world we're going to have to deal with, what kind of resources do you have or think you can have access to that can help us in this arena, both with funding as well as the actual tough part, which is getting this stuff done,
Mhm.
getting content created, collaborating with people that are already creating content,
Mhm.
and digital sponsors who might come along and say, "Hey, we love your idea. Here's $1 million, or here's $500,000, or whatever it is, or we want to help you build it."
Mhm.
So, what research do you think you could bring to the table?
Resources that I can bring to the table on that, it really depends if we're open, how open we are to sponsorship and corporate sponsorship in that space. I'm still working to build a digital platform, and I'm struggling with the placement of corporate sponsorship in that, and the ability for that to come into the space for some of the audience that we're trying to reach, as well as remaining sort of a authentic, on the ground, youth oriented platform for them to be freely interacting on. So that is something that we need to look at, but I think that's where some of the best opportunities are for this, for brands who want to come in and potentially sponsor going forward. Pharmaceuticals can be very helpful with that, if that's something that we're open to as an organization. And I think those conversations can happen easily, and that would be something that I would be pursuing quickly. And bringing in, is still in Hollywood, and I would want to, and I don't have deep relations in that space, but I would be scouring my committees in this group and saying, can we get potential introductions to corporate social responsibility organizations at Paramount, at the studios, who can help us potentially create this. That's where a lot of my focus would be right away. If there's no conflicts with the pharma side, I think some of those conversations can happen fairly easy too. And then as far as pulling in content that's being created out there, it has to do with conversations and giving credit at that space. There's great opportunities to pull in partners, and a lot of times they just want credit for the creation of that product, and that can be on the website, along with a call to action or a reference that goes to their platform and whatever they're promoting. Those are just general conversations that need to come into place. Things that I'm walking in the door with would be conversations and seeing what we're open to, and then seeing what we want to put together that pipeline.
And these conversations on sponsorship you've been having, what are the sort of specific challenges when you?
Some of the specific challenges that I've been hitting has been staying away from some of the corporate space due to my coalition partners, and staying out of pharma because of my relationship with some of the coalition partners and who they are. So having a coalition as a group is great. But they also put some restrictions on where funding can come into the space. Also, with my coalition partners, we've been wanting to remain very understanding of who our target audience is and where they're located across the globe, and how they might respond to something that's heavily branded with other corporate stuff. I don't think you're going for that exact same audience, actually. I'm talking about reaching, young girls in clinics in Malawi and South Africa. And a lot of times with that heavy branding, it doesn't quite seem like it's something for them. It seems like something's being sold to them. But there are ways around it, I think, that are smart, and people know that there is a place for corporate partners in these platforms who do care about these specific subjects in this area. So that's been some of the difficulty. And then going forward and finding funders who want to fund a digital platform that is really, in essence, supporting activism and youth activists who are out in the field. A lot of the hard sell has been, or the difficulty in the sell has been getting funding for a digital platform when people would rather just fund specific programs in that space. They want to do direct funding, saying,
Services.
yeah, to the clinic, as opposed to helping to support the youth leaders that might be driving that clinic and bringing them back to a central spot. So it's been a lot. That's been a lot of the conversation. It's been successful in some areas. There are some foundations out there who do see the benefits of it and are understanding it. And has been some of our seed money in the space. And other organizations, I mean, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS are in funding it. I saw you had Time Viola on your site recently. Those are people who can be very helpful and beneficial and bring additional resources into you guys as well. So that's been some of that difficulty. And also, for a lot of people who used to fund in the HIV/AIDS space and feels like it's not that relevant anymore, that it's kind of passed up, it's also just hard to explain to them what a digital platform is and the benefits of a digital component. And it's not just building a website, it's building an interactive space that acts as a call to action that helps unify people into a central spot. So that's why one of the key components that I hit on and I mentioned is that idea of a curriculum that can go out, that's actually living in the field and acts as a manual for in the field education and understanding and connectivity, is a vital component. And that is, in essence, what would be funded on your digital platform.
So one of the obvious questions we have for you is, given that you just sort of started your current position, why are you interested in leaving? I mean, I know that's a difficult one, and of course we don't want to bridge any confidentiality issues, but
no, absolutely.
That's an obvious question for us.
Sure. I'm not that interested in leaving. I care about this project coming out of the International AIDS Conference. I think there's some great momentum that we're going forward with, but I think, and I know I'd rather be working on this with you all, in the sense that it's right in my own backyard. It's something that's actually much closer to my heart, that I can help, that I can shepherd this project and get it placed. And which actually was born out of the International AIDS Conference. That can happen. So slightly opportunistic on my side. I don't see it as a massive detriment to the current Gen Endit, and I wouldn't want to burn anything there because those are some strong relationships and key partners. But the opportunity to make this happen and to create a little bit of legacy that I care about is probably stronger in this pathway.
Can you talk a little bit about tasks that you find most interesting, least interesting, and then maybe compare it against some of the things that we would need? So some of the, I would assume least interesting things are agenda items and figuring out calendars and syncing people up, as well as the big picture stuff like our strategy, our vision, long-term goals, and short-term goals. How do you kind of categorize all of that, and how do you feel about all of it?
Well, I'm more big picture strategy, that other side, but knowing that we get down in the weeds and we need to get that stuff done. So calendars is about using many of the tools that are online, Doodle and that sort of thing, and setting specific deadlines. Some of my least favorite stuff. Is the data entry, which I know you guys need, especially at this pivotal spot. Least favorite, and so I set aside specific hours and times to get it done in that pile that needs to happen. And one of my favorite, I wouldn't say agenda items. I like doing agenda items because it means that you're managing the conversation as well as what you want to get accomplished in there. For me, part of my strategy has always been having a a bi-weekly update or a weekly update that goes out on Friday with the pertinent information, and usually documents that are attached with a quick summary about what's in there, bullet points about what's happened over the week. What if people are only reading a few things, that's what they're reading, with the backup documents, which might be logger documents. I'm not exactly sure how you're doing it. But I know for me, getting that document that's being built over the course of the entire week and goes out on Friday, and it's both a relief when it goes out and also a little bit of creating more conversations in that space. So I have worked to figure out how to make those things happen, because the data capture is vital. In the past, I've had people who do it for me, but I know how to do it for myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you be a little bit more specific about that? So outside of email, texting, the most commonly used technologies out there, what are you familiar with in terms of like project management software, any other technology you use in your day-to-day life to streamline, automate, so that you can focus on the stuff you like to do, which is the big picture stuff?
More of the project management stuff isn't so much of the software, unless we're using, in the past, I've used Salesforce for our specific deadlines that need to pop up and reminders and that sort of thing. Usually map out on a larger grid, on a calendar grid, for the project management, the months, the weeks, the goals that need to be accomplished, what happens in that space. If you're using more of online tools and those sort of things, you'd have to get me up to speed.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know how to use them and like using them, and look, it's a very grounding practice to go in the office on Monday and be like, okay, where are we? Printing those documents out and seeing where we're at, what are we paying attention to, how does everything look? So it allows you to do both the big stuff and then also know that you're focusing in the right space.
And then one more tech-related question, which is, have you had any experience building something online that connects to something offline using either a mobile app or some kind of an application?
Not a mobile app yet. We never got there. Haven't got there yet. And even on the GenEndit project, rebuilding the website and doing updates to that, but we pulled back from the idea of doing an app. For the project here, an app is really useful, and I could see that really being done. But I built a few different websites that have driven to platforms and calls to action and petitions and that sort of thing. But haven't done an app, so brand new.
That's okay.
Yeah.
As long as you understand the overall concept, you could probably pull in some resources.
And I know you guys are working with Wondros. I've been working with Wondros as well. My meetings with them are great. They love me, where I sit there and just ask them, I'm like, okay, you have to stop. You must explain that over again. But going in with that idea of, please make it so I can understand everything that you're saying, and I'm not surrounded by this every single day, is a real gift to understand and to get them to slow down a little bit. It might be a little frustrating for them. We have long meetings, but we always have a lot of fun, and I'm clear on what they're doing and they're clear on what I want.
Great team. In our case, the city actually hired them. We did.
Yeah.
But we've had a really fun, interesting.
They're really smart.
We'll see how it goes. As far as the future of
I'm going to remind everyone that last time we had some audio problems
we got some
speaking loudly.
Thank
So
I'm actually, that's what I'm typing so much. There's a chat room next to the video. Just typing out. There you go.
I have another sort of more fundraising related question.
Please.
Specific to us. You already know John Guile has been since basically the inception of this organization, really fundraising for us. No matter what we do, no matter how much success we've had, we have a lot to do yet in the future with our fundraising. How do you feel about working with John Guile? And how do you think you could help sort of supplement what he's doing? Obviously, we have needs that John may or may not be able to satisfy. Endo, do you have any other specific fundraising ideas for us?
I have no problem working with John Guile. As of yet, I don't believe so. I know John has been a great asset too. so many organizations in the city and know them personally as well. I don't foresee any problems. And I know John has his specific group of donors that he goes to consistently for multiple projects. So one of the things that I would want to see part of the strategy going forward, and I don't know how well this is, if this has been well executed or well conceptualized, I guess is a better way to say that. From your platform, you've mostly raised a lot of money from individual donors, which is great, and also your large amount from Cedars-Sinai. I would like to see if this is going to, part of the vision of this, it seems like it's rooted now more of its presence with West Hollywood. So it has strong ownership in the West Hollywood realm, but at one point it was much more sort of a national monument. And I still think you guys have the ability to go bigger than others with what you're been talking about with this vision from day one. I would like to go out to kind of cast a wider net across the United States. And part of that is bringing in more of the corporate aspect and having part of those conversations and figuring out where there is a space for them in this area, whether it be a component of the digital platform that they're looking after, whether they're coming in and sponsoring educational tools that we can have created. I think there's sort of a wider net that can be cast right now about the vision, and I don't think that's out there. And the gift that $500,000 from Cedars-Sinai, is so incredibly rare and unique that can be leveraged in a real huge way to go forward and do more conversations saying, we just got a grant from Cedars-Sinai for this amount because they believe in the vision and here's where we're taking this. I think that can open up doors for you that's outside of this general greater Los Angeles area that should be explored and come into the fray and figure out a way to bring your corporate sponsorship into this area and what that means. Or do they have local offices here in the area that would benefit or would want to adopt part of the monument in space? So I would like to see it just go wider and conversations that go from businesses into space. Additionally, I think there is more foundation money and partnerships that can be created that bring you funding with the idea that the monument is an event space and a convener for people, a community convener. So that is an event space. That's where Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS kind of comes into mind for me, as well as part of the studio platform of going in and trying to get some money out of them and map out for them, not only do they care about this and this is right in their backyard, but map out for them opportunities for them to host events down there or to have a presence down there or to be a part of it at a stronger level and deepen their relationship. The space itself is really unique, and it's not just sending it off somewhere, but allowing people to think of it as a unique opportunity to showcase their pro-social interests as well.
Are there any specific foundations and corporations that you would want to target based on personal relationships?
I would go to Google. I would go to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS right away.
They already give us a big chunk of money.
Broadway Cares?
Yeah, over 100,000.
Great.
It was lost, but
I thought it was chunk of money.
Okay.
Can you give, by any chance, any case studies or share a big win or two with us that involve this very notion of going after sponsors or big fundraisers in your previous work?
Sure. Mostly with which was my last organization. We had strong corporate sponsorships that came into the space. And then what we would utilize is our advisory council and have them host specific events where they would identify the guest list for us. So one of my key champions here in the city was the Canadian consulate and the consul of Los Angeles. Yeah. And so he would host breakfast for us. We would work together on the invite list of organizations and companies that would come into play that we are trying to reach or that we're trying to find in space, and host a breakfast introducing the program and give an endorsement of it. And that's basically what they would sponsor a breakfast with the endorsement of their their organization about what our work was. So from that, knowing that we had a large event coming up, worked with each one of those introductions, follow-up meetings, and converted 70% of the people that were at breakfast in one way or another, which included the Lakers Foundation, the Dodgers Foundation, Gensler, downtown, who else was in there? So that was a nice opportunity for us to close the pipeline utilizing existing donors from the space. One of the additional components that happened is we had our larger partners, our sponsors there. So KPMG would come in and sit at the table with us. So this is a great idea with Cedars-Sinai. Is there an opportunity for us to leverage some of their relationships or sit down and saying, we really want to maximize your gift? How can we do that? Are there other entities or other partners of yours that we might be able to showcase both your pro-social contribution and generosity and bring them in and have them be a part of this as well? So partners beget other partners and their gifts, and they want to both leverage those. And so utilizing those has been successful for me very much in the past.
Is there anything else that you think that you're not doing that you would want to do? Or is there any other way that you would want to put your own personal stamp on the organization? You mentioned some of those things in terms of expanding the focus beyond West Hollywood, bringing in corporate sponsors, maybe some foundations.
Mm-hmm.
Any other ways?
Yes. And I know this is even in the job description, you need to put, you're looking to expand on your advisory council. I think that is something that can be leveraged as well. What partners can come into place and help us convene those into one general spot. Youth. You are not capturing any youth components at this point. We've talked about some of the educational opportunities that can happen out there, but you should have a youth council as well. And they should be figuring out what events they want to host there and what are some of the conversations that they want to lead and what sort of representation they can have during your opening, and how do they get a seat at the table. It's vital in this area, and it helps. Again, instead of it puts not just your monument sitting there in the ground, but it puts it in action. And in that same way, we need stronger outreach to a more diverse group, not only for representation, but in your advisory councils. We need more transgender representation. I'm not seeing opportunities with a lot of Latinas or Latinos that are part of the group. So I would like to see that be expanded more.
How do you go about keeping these folks motivated and interested, because it is all volunteer and giving their time and all that? So what are some ways that you go about doing that? I know
it's hard. It's hard. It's a great question, because it is part of the magic of what is trying to be accomplished here. And I think it kind of goes really three actions. One is consistently keeping things on deadline, that we do have a time frame, that there is a start and a stop, in essence, if they want to continue on, but knowing that people can do anything as long as they know when it ends. So not focusing so much on the end, but knowing that we're reaching certain milestones and gaining momentum, and that they are a part of it. Making sure that we're thanking them throughout, and that their time is precious. And then additionally, offering them inspiration and keeping them rooted and aligned with the mission. And then also figuring out ways to create some fun things. Sometimes when I read that as part of the remits for the job, is figuring out other ways to do other activities aside from our monthly meetings. I'm like, monthly meetings are a lot already, and everybody's in their committee meetings and monthly meetings, but is there something that can go forward and help engage them? And part of that has to do with, I don't know if this group is collectively doing any service projects together, but that can be a great opportunity to do that.
I think a dunking machine would be
Whack-a-mole or something.
Yeah, we give you the
I
first
have a good
candidate.
arm. I'll do it. Let me correct you.
But it's a swim team, but it's an opportunity to, that was almost something that was sort of nice about, one of the events that Jason hosted. It was, some of the board was there, not all the board, but it was a casual opportunity to bring people together and just let them exist. One of the things that was in that was very strongly is we were usually bringing in nonprofit organizations and working with corporations who wanted to, do the structure. And I always ask, are they doing service together? Or a service project. Can this group go down and volunteer down at Project Angel Food for a little while and help to develop that side of them and meet, and no pressure, and it's casual, and it's talking, and it's also an opportunity to see how other organizations that we will most likely be working with work.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do want to expand our reach to include at least local ASOs and LGBT organizations, because we want to do cross-promotional
Sure.
marketing activities. What are the organizations that you feel like you have the strongest relationships with in that regard?
The LGBT Center, Outfest, Project Angel Food. Yeah, probably off the top of my head.
Can you go back to youth?
Sure.
It's been something that we've always wanted to reach young people
Mm-hmm.
as far as our mission and our audience. And I don't think we've done a great job. And certainly not in terms of development. It doesn't come from young people. But how do we do that? You mentioned a youth council.
Yeah.
But I know with we and with Genendit, your sort of market, your audience has always been young people.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make this really resonate and sing?
Thank you.
With young people, so they're involved.
So instead of going and trying, and it's the way it works. We're always like, wow, we want to reach young people. Yeah. We have to have young people reach us, and that's how it works. So they need to discover you, have ownership over that, and know that they have a place in there. And
What's the bait?
And that's it can be anything it can be a conversation in a classroom and making the ask and letting them know that there's a place for them in this space and that they can have ownership and that we're looking for those voices. Sometimes it's an event online or stuff that you're putting out online that they run across, and it's something that triggers it and they feel like they have ownership. Part of the bait is creating a space for them to come into. And what that is sort of both sitting down and plotting and magic, and seeing if that can be created. I think there's some great youth that are around the space who might want to pick up the mantle. And it would be something that you would work with your partners, Wondros or something like that. Is there something that a little youth hook or youth component, something that we can create in that space that might be a little bit more relevant, that we can start popping out into those areas that hopefully get those people into the space. But I just, and it can be also as easy, I talk about creating that space. I just hosted at the International AIDS Conference listening sessions for Genendit. And that was something that hasn't been done. So they created this great platform with all these celebrities, but nobody for youth, but nobody had talked to youth. And once you get youth into the space and say, hey, we want to listen to you, and pose a few questions to them in the right arena, they're usually pretty present and letting them know that they will have been ownership from this before. And now we're setting up a WhatsApp group.
That is very smart.
Yeah, at their suggestion. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to learn how to do that. All right.
No, that's where everything's going now. People are spending more time in messaging apps.
Yeah.
And that's particularly the youth.
And it can be, and it's picked up by anyone around the globe. It's what
Exactly.
everybody else is using. And then WhatsApp, I also would want to see as a kind of an interesting sponsor opportunity.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, on WhatsApp.
No, they don't. I don't think so.
Not WhatsApp. They own
They have their own
Instagram.
messengers.
Instagram.
They own Instagram.
They
Yeah.
have their own messengers, so they're competing with WhatsApp. Unless something happens.
Yeah, but it might have been bought over the course of the day. I don't think they do own WhatsApp. Are you checking?
They know what's that.
Do they? Check it out. But yes, they own it. Oh, they do. God, they're so devious.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
All those, what's the net worth of that company?
Facebook?
Yeah.
Well, they've lost 100 billion
It's
in
true,
one day.
in one day, but they're still worth, I don't know, hundreds of billions
Probably
of
like
dollars.
700.
So, all the way out there.
They're a tricky one, but yes.
So now let's kind of flip this around and ask if you've got any questions of us.
I do.
Going forward, as part of this.
Well, I know you guys have had a lot of, you guys have been up and running for a while now, and you guys have, been led by an executive director and coming back to the council. Can you kind of give me a little bit about how the committee structure has evolved and some of the challenges and kind of where it's at now?
We have, our standing committees are design, development. One committee is combined in doing marketing and tech, stories, just content, and programming content.
And you guys have put up some really nice content. It's really fun.
And then we have our executive committee,
Mhm.
and we have a small governance committee that works as needed.
We have a small finance committee too.
Of one. Yeah, I know.
But the,
Actually, he's rather tall.
It's more than enough. It's more than enough.
the challenges are really staying on task, identifying the tasks in detail, fleshing them out, getting stuff done. Busy people. Participation is sporadic. And so we really kind of need a, in effect, a lion tamer to come in and make sure that people set and meet their goals.
Strong project management.
Right. That's true. And I think, the beauty of what we have is we've been really lucky to have such a dynamic group of people. And there is never a shortage of ideas. Never a shortage of ideas. Our problem is execution, because we have so many ideas, and the question becomes, okay, so what are we going to hone down on, and what are we going to do? We've actually, I think, when you look back, and we have been primarily volunteer without much, if any, staff. We've accomplished a lot, but we still have some very concrete goals and a mission that's really been consistent from day one. Our mission has really been very consistent. So, but executing that mission and continuing it is really, I think, the key.
So I think we need better organization, because the more clear we are on who's doing what, when, that sort of thing, the better it will be for us. We can clearly say, okay, this got done, this didn't get done, why didn't it get done, how can we accomplish it? But also bringing in new blood, whether that be additional board members, committee members who are not board members, volunteers, council and advisor members. We cannot continue to rely on the same people. Those people, including those sitting right here, can burn out.
And I personally care a lot about using really simple technology to automate and streamline a lot of the basic stuff that we keep doing manually, just for the sake of freeing up our time and focusing more on the big picture stuff. But what Mark was saying is to focus ultimately on executing some of these ideas, honing in on what they are. It's such a big thing.
If I was to ask, what are those 3 core ideas?
Well, I think we've already kind of really discussed it. The digital experience is, both tech component itself, the tech platform itself, which I think, and thanks very much to Dimple and Bruce Brown, who co-chairs with her. We've got a lot of good direction. We've made some progress in getting a website and getting a platform together, but we still have a grander platform that we envision that will work beautifully when the monument is installed. It's really going to work. So we still have to accomplish that. Number two, stories. And, our stories committee chair is right here. And, his mantra, as we can call it that, is, well, let's keep it simple. Let's not just go all over the place, because we can all come up with this. There's so many wonderful ideas on developing content, but then we can get lost in the clouds and we won't. So that's really the question, focusing on that, focusing, getting the tech platform, the greater tech platform developed, and produced and up and running and working. Content, which is going to be never fluid, right?
Yeah.
And the content, the beauty of our organization, if you want to say, in many respects, is that will never be static. Well, neither will the tech. It's always going to have to be that. But we want to continue to create and curate content.
Sure.
So those are the two biggest. Fundraising is always.
There's another thing that's really important that we haven't really spoken about, and that's in the next 2 years, we're going to fabricate and install a monument.
Right.
So we've got a firm in Australia who has a contract with us, but we've got to manage, oversee that, work with the city. To me, it's our main charge. We have to make sure that happens.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you raised that, because we haven't really talked about that. We know that the city of West Hollywood. I'm assuming you live here in the city, the city. But a good chunk of what we do, have to do and continue to do, is to continue to define our role and the city's role and how it's going to work, and actually how that final end product is going to work. We still have refinement to do on that, and it's political and interesting process. I'm very, that doesn't mean I'm negative about it. I'm not. I know we can work this through.
It's that was my next question. It's like, the city is how I know how they lie against this. We don't have to go deep, but what are some of the specific needs that they have right away and that you guys need to, talking about defining how they sit with you guys?
Well, I think if I were to say what the big question mark is really this whole digital experience.
Okay.
That's the big.
And we're talking
question.
about it both at the site itself. What happens, whether it's an app that they click on or download or walk them through. And then in addition to that, the call to action that connects them to the larger digital platform and keeps them engaged no matter where they are in the world.
Right now, the main call to action that everyone seems to love is that people can upload their own stories while they're there. So text-based stories, photo-based stories, video-based stories, and have that connect with our website, and also kind of build like this archive of all kinds of stories.
I read about that. And how is the artist using that? He said he wanted the stories and he was using them for the monument. Is he using like words on that, or?
There are talks of marking what we call stories, which are actually traces, marking them with certain things, but all of that's kind of being decided right now.
I mean, Dan ideally would like, he's very open to all of these ideas. He's thrown about ideas of either etchings or actual words and on portions of the traces. We will have tablets that we will have potentially some content on that's permanent, as well as we talked about delivery of a never-ending stream of content. How exactly that's done, he's open to it. He loves the idea. It motivates him. But he's not the guy that's going to be able to say, here's how to do it with my piece of art. He'd love it. He'd like to adapt his art to accommodate it, but he couldn't tell us how to do it. Neither could his organization.
And although my fellow board members look like they're terrorized when I'm saying this, but also using technology to share stories.
Mhm.
So I've talked about holograms, projections, things like that that we can incorporate into the artwork.
Mhm.
But again, that goes against keeping it simple and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But because you kind of have this strong quality in finding sponsors, I think with the right sponsor and resources, I don't think we'd be afraid of going the big route of having something like that there.
I think that the next aspect of the digital experience that we know that we want to do is some sort of a visitor guide.
Mhm.
So when you get there,
The
you
very
can,
basic
you
level.
can get on your phone, connect to the website, and select either a standard guide or if you can customize your own guide based on what you're interested in.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm not sure if I said this clearly before, but what still has to be defined with the city is the city started this whole discussion with us with we own all the IP, we do all the content development, we appreciate and we understand us granting them a piece of art.
Mhm.
That's easy because there's a history, there's precedent. The idea of it being more than just a physical art piece that then becomes something that the city is involved in on an ongoing basis is something they don't have precedent for. Neither does the staff. And there's no staff people to deal with it.
Mhm.
So that's the challenge. That and the sort of issue that we're going to look at going forward with the city. Is that all completely retained on the fan side forever? Would the city want to get involved? They say they don't, and yet they do. They just hired Wondrous, and one of the things they hired Wondrous to do was to create content, and they did create content.
Mhm.
So it's a matter of that resolving all of that
Mhm.
with the city, and I think it's a sort of it's going to be an interesting process going forward over the next year or two as we get there.
And who are your main contacts at the city, or do you go in front of the city council, get approval?
Well, we
And then you
have
have a
John Duran and John D'Amico are the liaisons
Mhm.
to city council to us. Despite our efforts, getting them actively involved has not been successful.
Okay.
They don't. We've invited them to every board meeting, and they just don't want to come to the
Mhm.
meetings. I know they're busy people.
Sure.
We do occasionally, a group of us, myself included,
Mhm.
and make sure we keep them up to date and lobby them. And then we have our relationships. I have my relationships with all the council.
Yeah.
And then we have on the staff level, really, we're dealing primarily right now with two people. Joanna Hamliker, who has been really assigned. There's been a series of people. This is turnover at the city because she's under Paul Arabalo, city manager.
Mhm.
And she's responsible for projects. So, and then Andrew Campbell came on board. Really was not involved the first couple of years in a real active sense, but now they've brought him more involved in his cultural affairs, arts. So,
We have 5 minutes left. Should you have other questions?
Thank you.
So what would success look like in 6 months for this role?
For you?
Mhm.
For us as an
I
organization.
mean, if
For me.
grading you in 6 months,
Mhm.
That's interesting.
I would say increased
The dunk
productivity for the board members and the committees.
Being measured on the board.
Additional board members, council members.
Is there a recruitment committee?
No.
Okay.
Meeting or exceeding our fundraising goals.
Yeah.
And putting, well, I guess inherent in greater productivity would be
some real concrete
organizational
processes, systems.
right.
Yeah, and if I were to add to that, I think is helping further define and clarify this digital component, because that's really, I think it's key in our point in our evolution.
And then as far as
Absolutely.
budgeting for And that's super helpful because that's sort of an alignment of where are your goals and what are you guys needing immediately. For the digital platform component, is the funding in place for that, and has it been? So that needs to come into place before the expansiveness can be
That's right.
understood, realized,
That's right.
or looked at.
And actually, we've been sort of in this interesting situation because the city's position has been, we're giving them an art piece. All they care about is knowing that we are funded to deliver the art piece. So we've been focusing a lot on that because we have an MOU with the city. The city's going to give us will give us 500,000. Those are our benchmarks. They don't care about the digital experience cost. So we've been focusing a lot on that to satisfy that. But I think we've done a great job, and really lucky to have Craig to help shepherd us through with that whole process. And we basically delivered to the city everything that they wanted from us financially.
Mm-hmm.
On that component. Now we got the digital experience. And it's actually, I think, it would be one of the fun portions of our ED's job going forward is how do we define and fund this organization after installation?
Mm-hmm.
And with the digital experience and the mobile tour guide that Erwin mentioned, it actually doesn't cost very much money to set that up and to get it going. But the hard part is getting everyone on the same page about just moving forward with that small component. So to have an ED that I can work with closely and getting that message across clearly, getting the plan across clearly, getting everyone on the same page, that would be really helpful because then we get a part of the digital experience taken care of as we focus on bringing in other things like a projection or some sponsor may bring in an idea that we're not even thinking about.
Exactly.
It could be like a Microsoft or Google could be working on a technology that we have no idea about, but it would be a great way for them to introduce that technology to the world because they made it a part of our market.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. Our other big sponsor has been Business Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
who gave us $25,000 in seed money when we were just an infant organization, and then $250,000 in funding. Which, by the way, I had a meeting with them this morning. We still need to get that the invoice out to them. So they pay us annually $50,000.
Yeah, get
But
that,
the point
get
I was
that
making-
invoice out.
Yeah, that's the loss of not having an ED. But they've envisioned it. We've envisioned that mining is being a real tourist attraction.
Mm-hmm.
They saw that from there.
Yeah.
And they also thought the design lent itself to it. The location absolutely lends itself to it. So that's a big opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think we could make it into a tourist destination?
I've been thinking about that and sort of wondering. It's a basically outreach to those organizations that are driving that traffic in the space, bottom line, and also setting up your initial activations, your launch with coverage that goes well beyond the city for any reason as well. So that need to get the press up, and we need to be driving those celebrities into the space and seeing them activate in that space. That and then hosting specific activities that would happen with the hotels and the concierges, and whatever that launch budget is, you just probably need a bit more to host some events down there in that space, and they'll catch it, and then that goes back to that idea of what is the experience down there? Is it moving? Is it totally sad? Is it sad, moving, and hopeful?
My thought's been the more disruptive and unique the technology is that most people don't have access to, that is the press release. That is what's going to get out there in the news wires because we have something that no other destination does. And that's why I've always wanted a bigger, more cutting edge type of idea so that we don't have to work as hard to get the traffic there.
Mm-hmm.
The technology itself will carry that for us.
Yeah. And the design aspect will allow you to get that story, will allow that to hit the magazines and the stuff that goes globally as opposed to just the local print and papers.
Who don't care about the digital part, then the artwork will hold us up.
Absolutely. And then I think one of the key components as well is getting those partner organizations. So, I mean, I mentioned off those 3 organizations, but Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation is close in my world right now. Charlize Theron still. Other entities, Elizabeth Glazer, Pediatric AIDS Foundation, and Jake Glazer. There's reference to the Glazers in your stories about, I think, Susan Rosenblatt. Suzanne, getting involved that way. Jake lives here. Jake is, and he's an HIV positive straight male who's really passionate about this. So there's opportunities for us to look towards that, both the installation and the details, but also part of that big picture stuff is, what is this launch going to look like? What is the attention we want to put on the world for it to get put up in the stratosphere, and how is that going to help sustain traffic into that space and allow people to know that this was a valuable and educational opportunity? And then that drives them in as well. So that sort of crowd building, the idea needs to be happening now. And it's a switch. It's kind of fun. You guys have been thinking so severely about building, and it's still there, but there's a little bit of in my mind, and I know that it might feel a little bit further away, but thinking about, what are the invite lists? Who are the groups we need to run through there? What are the experience we want them to have? Who do they need to meet when they go down that space? I mean, really launching this or getting this up and running is a big deal.
Thank you. I think
you're welcome.
We probably do have to cut it
you
short.
do. It's 1:10 now.
Yeah.
Next person, actually, if you do have a couple of questions, our next person's not coming until 4:20. We could do another 2 minutes or so because we still have to talk.
I do have one quick question for the funding. So in order to get funding for the digital platform, we don't have to treat it as if it's a separate entity that people are funding.
Right.
Yeah, it can still come out of the general fund that happens with the AIDS monument. Okay, great. That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much.
Thank
We
you.
really, really
Thank you.
appreciate you coming here.
Thank you. As always, and congratulations, and keep on moving it forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How was the AIDS conference?
It was amazing, actually. It was massive, but it was amazing. It was good. It was hot. And it had a and I had a hotel with no air conditioning.
Are there any insights that you had from there that you put into what you're doing?
Yes. And I think you guys, San Francisco would be the next conference. It really does happen in the country. Whether it's having stories there.
Is that 2 years?
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a perfect time.
It's really, and to start putting that in place now, and having some conversations, like, San Francisco AIDS Foundation. Those conversations now, I forget how much.
That's my extreme.
He's good.
He's good. He's off with watching Boys in the
No.
So sorry to
Yeah, I bet you going. Have a picture of him.
I'm really sorry to get to you.
It's on Saturday. So good to see you. Thanks, man.
Thank you. See ya.
All right. I can see you all. Okay.
Sure.
So is Aashna will be sitting outside, or what?
I'm sure she's here early, but we could take a few minutes to chat.
Okay, I need to go to the right here, right?
Yeah.
One thing I would say is that when we're asking candidates if they have questions, the important thing, in my view, is understanding their thought process and what they're asking, as opposed to giving them long answers to their questions. Because we know the answers, and they're not going to need to know them unless we hire them.
So how would I be looking at your?
Well, not you, just
How would we alter?
Just streamline the answers and focus more on follow-up questions that get to their thought process.
That's right.
Out to the right.
That is a closet.
Which one out there?
That's one out there.
You just go,
You already came out of that.
go out. Right.
It's a nice little meeting spot. I do like it here.
No cookies, but.
Or should I do the scorecard?
Yeah, you can do it now or send it to me later. Whatever you like.
Oh,
Don't forget to write your name on it.
This one had the old name. Should I just put in the new names?
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to update that. It's been a crappy 2 weeks.
You okay?
Yeah, just besides like other personal stuff, I had this dumb neighbor who did something really stupid in our garage that basically made my car unusable for a couple of weeks. I don't even want to talk about it, but and I actually really needed my car this month because I need to go back and forth from Orange County. Trying to help my parents move across country and I have no car.
Wow.
Yeah, so very annoyed about that.
That's too bad. Is it behind you now?
No, it's gonna be for like another week or so.
Oh, it sucks.
So what did you think?
Solid.
Very solid.
Yep. But
What did you think?
Big fan.
I'm a big fan
You
too.
know, I think he's really smart. He knows the area. He knows the city. He knows why it's important. He's got a definite connection. I think he'd be effective.
My only concern was what you pointed out in the resume, which is bouncing around. That's my only concern.
You did ask the question about why he was leaving this kind of situation.
I'm not sure that he will be able to help us expand the scope of relationships that we don't already have.
That's a good question.
I think a good quality in an ED would be someone who can bring something new to the table. I think he has less experience shepherding an organization and seeing it grow and succeed than Tony does.
So he's 9 years with one organization.
And with demonstrable results.
Right.
I'm not sure that.
I mean,
We should have asked him about demonstrable results from his.
I tried to.
We can follow up with that
Yeah.
question.
We can have a follow-up on that list of questions.
I actually think the next step is for us to narrow it down to 2 people we really like and then bring them in for another round of questioning.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out what we do next. I was in my just impression, you started out kind of
Rigid.
dull,
Yeah,
rigid,
really
dull.
rigid and dull. But then he opened up.
He was nervous.
Well, he's a bit that way. That's kind of,
That's his personality.
yeah, he's pretty,
There's
Yeah.
still a big difference.
I actually don't think he's that way at all. He's a friend.
no, but in business situations, he's
Pretty
not,
buttoned down.
he's not as,
But
Look at this
it-
environment, though.
well, you're right.
4 of us with a camera and
Right.
it's like prosecutorial setting
You
here.
are back a little bit. I was watching on the screen. It just seems to work out with the hands. He's
I
likes
have-
to move his hands.
I have
There's a
limited
lot of it on the screen.
cordage, so that's
Oh.
why I'm not going back too far.
But on the other hand, as the interview went on, he warmed up a whole lot, and he got more engaged. Because at the beginning, it was very rigid, structured.
No, he opened up much more.
He did have some good ideas,
Yeah.
I like the youth
Yeah,
council.
but I appreciate your comment. Other than the youth component, which certainly we need, and we don't have the connection to, which I suspect he does.
well,
Got
again,
some.
it's a good idea. How do you
How do you-
achieve it? And when
Achieve
we
it.
tried to get into the specifics, it was a little vague.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that was peculiar too was when I was asking about the corporate sort of sponsorship issue and his current experience with it. That was
Well, the answer wasn't really the corporate names you were expecting. It was the event with the Canadian consulate.
that's not what I was
Consulate.
Well, that was an example of the past, but like, you know,
Lakers would be good.
right,
Foundation.
Google would certainly be good. We know they're available. They funded the New York AIDS Memorial.
They'd be
haven't
great
able to
for
reach
the,
them.
sponsoring the digital platform.
That's interesting.
I mean, he seems solid. I question how long he'll be focused with us before he finds the next shiny thing.
That's an interesting thought, isn't it?
And then the other thing was just getting a bit more specific about what connections he really has. Like, okay, he mentioned Google, but is there really a relationship there, or is it just like a name he brought up because it's a good fit for our digital experience?
I think that the reason he's been, we can ask him, but I think the reason that he's been in somewhat shorter gigs is because he's joined, in some cases, new organizations, or very small organizations, and, it's hard to get those off the ground if you're depending on third parties for funding, and that does sound like he had some funding challenges with board and sort of, support organizations aligning. Yeah. So, coming into FAM, I think it'll be less of a build out and more of a maintain and grow. But I'm not sure he's done that before. So I think that I get the sense that, I don't question at all his enthusiasm, and it seems like he would be very smart and skilled. I just wonder if he has the experience of dealing with a board and running an organization that's already in place and being able to handle those, manage those personalities and all that. It's a particular, I just feel like Tony's experience in doing that, it might be stronger.
But in a way, that's job one. You're executive director of the organization, so he's got to kind of be a strong manager and leader.
And Steve is a super nice guy, but sometimes I feel like he might be too nice. The ability to politely but firmly lower bring the hammer down is important. Michael had none of that. Like he was the opposite end of the spectrum.
He just stayed away from it.
Right, he avoided.
He just let everybody else run with their projects instead of, he didn't really manage any projects. He just let everybody do their own thing.
Yeah.
Including the vendors as well as our staff, our own committees. So we that project management is key to what we're doing. Yeah, it's so interesting. So, I mean, each one of these people brings something different to the table.
Yeah.
Aashna's,
It's completely
completely out of left field. Completely. And it's actually one of the most, my own biggest questions is, what the hell do you want this job? Here's somebody, although she sort of answered it in her cover letter, and she did beautifully, but she likes to be of service.
Same question you had for Harold. We all had for Harold.
Harold's more obvious.
Because of his personal history.
Yeah, I mean, he's part of this community. He's personally been there.
And has relationships.
Right.
That could help him succeed.
Aashna is coming out of left field.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
She's more not like specifically like into let's do AIDS HIV work. She's into just let's do something that involves giving back.
Right.
And kind of like me, where I came into this not really having a huge personal attachment to it. Now that I'm getting to know all of you, some of the stories, watching the videos, now I'm understanding it a little bit better. I think she's more closely related to me as far as background goes, and like the why part. It's kind of like, okay, I know I like doing tech work, and I know I like giving back, but I don't know about this specific thing. But when I get into it, but when I get into it and I learn a little bit more about it, then I will become invested. Is that good?
I'm not sure. I heard
I
something.
think she probably is waiting for us to grab them.
Oh,
Are we ready for
wasn't it? Yeah, I think so. It's 20 after.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go grab it.
And I noticed that Aashna's covered letter. Since I was 16, I created stories through media. What does that mean? I'm curious what that really means. I mean, obviously, she's created lots of stories.
Right.
She's a host on TV. She's produced all this stuff. But I mean, whole different. Meet her? Did you meet her that time? Well, I get it. I'm not quite sure how it does, where the connection is, how she can be able to connect with West Hollywood City Council or with this peculiar community that she doesn't really yet have a relationship with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's the big question. I'm not sure that. Now it's going here. It's really the big question. And if I don't ask it, maybe you can ask that question. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Coming into our
Hi.
our boardroom for the moment.
Hi. Aashna. Hi, Erwin.
You want some water?
Nice to meet you. You want some water? Sure. Hi.
See you again.
Nice
Craig.
to see you. Nice.
See you.
Want me to sit over there?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
How have you been since our little escapade at Sour House?
Great. I loved that night. That was really a lot of fun.
You was on a trip, I think we were
I go on a lot of trips, so I don't even remember which
at
one.
the we were going after we-
Thank you.
we talked. We were going somewhere.
Was I going to Italy? Italy.
Maybe that's-
Yeah, that was really nice. Very relaxing.
Where'd you go?
I went to Florence. My friend's a chef, and she was moving back to LA, so she needed help bringing her dogs back. And so I roamed around from Florence. So I went to Rome and then Venice and a few other little towns. It's good.
I'm going to Italy.
You're going to Italy? Oh,
My daughter,
Oh, where else are you?
well, I am go to Naples, Sardinia,
Yeah.
Sicily, Greece. So.
great.
Nice
Thanks.
coming out. Well, thank you for coming. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Am I the last one?
You are. The current stint.
Right.
Yes, you've been
right.
the last one. But
Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah,
a
that's
little bit?
probably a good
We didn't
idea.
do that with Steve, although he knew
Yes,
everyone.
yes,
I'm Erwin Rappaport. I'm vice chair of the board, and I'm also co-chair of the stories committee.
Okay.
I'm Craig Doherty. Met you up at
So,
House.
yes.
I am CFO, which is a volunteer position.
You never know it.
When you hear that, some people might think I'm staff, but a board member and been here from the beginning, and happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And I'm Mark Lehman, chair of the board, and not one of the founders per se, because I wasn't here at the very beginning, but pretty much since the organization really got on its feet. And active in the city too as well. We're active in the Hollywood community there.
Give your office across the street from Soho House.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. And I live here too.
Yeah.
Do you need me to? Or?
Yes, Dimple, please introduce
Dimple
yourself.
Tucker. So I'm a board member, as you know, but I'm also on the executive committee, and I'm also co-chair of the marketing and technology committee. Probably one of the newer folks in the group. I joined about last year, so Yeah, that's it. And here we are.
We are.
Shall I start, guys?
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I mean, most obvious question.
Yes.
Why would you be interested in this job? You know, especially we all look at your, your background, your resume. It sort of seems like totally out of left field.
It is and it's not, only because I've been volunteering all my life. Like I've been volunteering since I was a kid with various organizations. And so I worked with Sick Kids Hospital and the Cardiac Rehabilitation Center, moved into like team and training when I came here, American Cancer Society. So I've been doing a lot of volunteer work, and I have never been employed by a nonprofit. I sit on the board of the Institute of Neuroinnovation, and we help people with Alzheimer's and dementia and people who have had concussions. And so I've been active with them for the past like 3 to 4 years. And I really felt like this was a great transition. Like I like to challenge myself. I want to do things that are different, and I want to give back to the community. And I spent a lot of time being an entertainer, and I think there's more to what I can offer. And so when this opportunity came back to me, I just felt like this was something that I should at least put everything towards and see if it's a possibility for me to work, for it to work out. I also went to, bless you, went to business school, and that was really out of my element too, because my undergrad was in journalism. So I definitely like challenging myself. I learned a lot in business school, and I think a lot of the skills that I use in my current position and the things I've learned in business school really apply to being an executive director.
And do you have any personal experience with HIV/AIDS that you bring to the organization?
So I've never had any family member or friends or anybody that I know closely have HIV, but I know friends of friends that have. And growing up, my dad had a really close friend who had passed away from HIV. So as a little kid, I really didn't understand too much what was going on, but I did see all this pain and suffering. And I did ask a lot of questions at that time. And my parents talked to me about a lot of stigmas associated with AIDS. And so from there, I kept my eye open. And then I started hearing about different celebrities passing away from AIDS. And I heard about Magic Johnson having it, or Eazy-E passing away. And so a lot of that has just been in my life, but not like a personal connection with that.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, just having read your cover letter and your resume, it's interesting. You said that since I was 16, I've created stories for media.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably know that's something that's part of our mission as well.
Yeah.
What is it that you did, and how would, and obviously you've been producing stuff for many years, how would that relate to what we're doing, when you see what we're doing on mission?
So a lot of times it's been like entertainment stories with different celebrities, and then them talking about very personal things, not just, what they're doing in their career right now. Also through the travel industry as well. I definitely told a lot of stories through travel. So some things have been very light, and some of the things that I've done have been very compelling. But I've seen a lot of the stories on your website, and I mean, they're very moving. And that's some of the area that I've worked in when I've done like PSAs, and I've had to do promos for different charity organizations. So that's more of where I've had that kind of experience with the stories.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the tasks you find in your work that are most interesting to you, least interesting to you? How do you feel about having a seat in the leadership, visionary, strategizing role versus also having a seat in making sure small day-to-day things are done, like agendas and getting everyone in sync with their calendar so that we can meet and accomplish some of the big picture stuff? How do you feel about all of that?
So I actually like day-to-day activities because I like being like super organized. So I like having everything like organized day to day. I I love, like with I&I, Institute of Neuro Innovation, I conduct a lot of their meetings. So we have a lot of times before the events, we'll have like meetings every evening or weekly, quarterly. So I'm always eager to do that and get people involved and brainstorm. I think I could brainstorm all day long. I think that's one of my favorite things to actually do. So in terms of the day-to-day stuff that maybe some people might find mundane, I actually really enjoy it. But the things I enjoy most would probably be doing the stories. I think that is really fascinating, although I'd probably cry after each one. And then also event planning, because I've done a lot of charity events and galas and wedding planning. And I like to take something from the beginning and see it go through all the processes and bring it to fruition. So that's something I'm very comfortable with. Anything to do with people, I love meeting new people, working with people, working one-on-one, working alone, working with groups and teams. I love doing that as well. And then I've had so much experience being on television. And so I'm extremely comfortable doing presentations or working with the media and being a spokesperson. Because I've definitely been a spokesperson for a lot of the charities. I've emceed a lot of their events. I go out as their spokesperson and I'm being interviewed. And then I also interview a lot of people too.
Can you talk a little bit about the other part of the questions? What kind of demotivates you? What do you not like about? Because we want the good, bad, and ugly.
Yes. Okay. So what I don't really care for is paperwork. I see papers sometimes and I want to run, but I know that's just something that's part of the job, but that's something that I definitely I don't find interesting. For sure. So the day-to-day paperwork, anything to do with taxes, I don't find that interesting. And I have had to do that too, and make sure that everything is properly put in the right place so you're not getting audited or anything like that. So I don't find that stuff interesting at all. I'm a fast learner. I don't know as much about all the different software that all of you use. I've definitely used Google Docs and Google Hangout, and that's a lot of the ways I've been communicating. So I would have to learn some of the software, but I'm willing to learn on my own or through other organizations or through taking classes.
Can you talk about the ED of a nonprofit?
Yeah.
With 16, 17 board members, a lot of major donors, partnership with the city, big contractors who are going to fabricate, install the monument. What about your career has prepared you to be in an ED position with a nonprofit?
So I think everything that you go through in life helps to prepare you for the next thing. I think I'm a really empathetic person. And even though I haven't had any personal experience with someone passing away with AIDS, I've definitely have suffered a lot, have had a lot of trauma and come out ahead. I really feel like I work from the inside out. And so we had talked about you going to Unplugged and, I meditate daily. I do my yoga daily. So everything I believe that I become a better person from the inside out. So every day I feel like I'm changing in terms of leadership roles. I've always had to take a leadership role in the entertainment business. I've always, for a lot of times it's for budget reasons because they really couldn't afford a producer. So they're like, well, you're going to be the host and the producer, and then please handle all the clients and handle everything. So really for the past 10 years of my life, I've been in very much a management role. The easiest thing I do in my career is actually host. The rest of the stuff is much more complicated. And I have to travel and work with a variety of clients in different parts of the world and have to do that on a regular basis. So there's always leading your core team, but there's also leading a new team from different parts of the world, working with people from different walks of life. And then, like I said before, I'm on the board of I&I. So I already work with a pretty active board right now. So I am used to all all of that
And
too.
what were some of the biggest challenges in the past, working with the board or with the management structure?
The one challenge I would say with working with the board was we would find that some people would be very active on the board, and then some people would be inactive. And that was really and that was a really that was a really tough thing. And I think this year what we've done with I&I is that we've actually put our foot down and said, if you are going to be an active board member, we want to keep you. If you're going to be inactive, then we would like a monetary donation of $2,500 to just be on the board, instead of just being on the board for no other reason than to just have that on your resume. On this board, there are a lot of physicians, a lot of neurosurgeons, and they are really busy. So some of them can't be involved on a day-to-day basis like a lot of us are. But thank you. But they are really good at getting donations, so we don't want to lose them as well. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry. You were okay.
What do you think have been some of your biggest successes in terms of, as in a leadership role,
Mhm.
whether it be, from a fundraising perspective, a management perspective, a production perspective?
So I would say for the Institute of Neuroinnovation or Team in Training, a lot of times they brought me in because they wanted a fresh approach. A lot of the board members were very similar, and they wanted me to come in and kind of like shake things up and change things. And with their events, I have done that, because before people would spend like $250 to $300 going to an event to listen to doctors talking, and it was a very boring experience. And because I come from the entertainment industry and I want to make sure people are enjoying themselves at the same time being educated, that was probably one of my biggest successes with a lot of the nonprofits that I come in, and I make the event really like lively and fun, but at the same time, you're still being educated, but you come having a really good time and a great experience. And then successes for production. If I feel like a lot of times when I do production, especially travel shows, it's like Survivor. I have to see if I can make it out alive and if everything's going to be done properly. So when a show actually gets completed on time or early, and everything runs smoothly, I feel like that's a huge success. But sometimes I want a little bit of those failures because, one, it's a very humbling experience, but also like I want to problem solve. Like I want to think about what am I going to do in this situation? And I have definitely been in a lot of those situations where I have to figure out in a second, like what to do and troubleshoot. So I do enjoy that challenging part of it too.
So this moves to one of our next questions,
Yeah.
which is, you're probably familiar with our mission.
Mm-hmm.
And one strong element of our mission that actually Patel is very active, as well as our chair over there of our stories committee is what we call our digital experience.
Mm-hmm.
We're building an art piece. I call it an art piece, but we have a major component of the digital experience. So part of what's important going forward for who will be our next executive director is making that happen. Working with our board, as well as all of whatever your resources are, our resources are to make it happen. So what have you done in your past that would help you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And on the fundraising side of that, how would you think of, do you have resources for funding, sponsorships, etc., on the digital side of things?
So, I mean, I work in media. A lot of the stuff I do is digital too. Like a lot of the shows are digital. I've worked a lot with video game companies. And so I had to play a lot of different characters, but I also had to help them figure out how to make the video game really look effective and work. So in that aspect, I have that experience, but I have a lot of friends in the tech industry, and I feel like I could dabble in my contacts that I have, either on LinkedIn, Facebook, family, friends, coworkers, former coworkers, friends of friends, and look for really big sponsorships, because I think it's better to think of something like that on a much grander scale. Doing this digital project is a huge project, and you also want to make it very relevant to everybody. And I feel like people these days are extremely tech savvy. And so you kind of want to be a little like a few years ahead. And also because this monument's going to be there forever, also figure out ways where it's going to be current all the time so that we can keep updating it and making sure that that happens. So we'll probably really go for looking like hustling for sponsorship more than anything else. In terms of fundraising, I know a lot of wealthy people, and also like a lot of companies match, and so they match donations. So I think we could take advantage of that too, like a lot of companies will. And I think collaborating with other organizations, like I have a very close friend who's the chairman of the board of Project Angel Fund. And he's invited me to come to his board meetings. He's like, if this position works out for you, please come to our board meetings. Please come and learn from us. And, you know, they're a larger organization, and they actually ended up hiring for their executive director someone who was in the media, who had zero experience as an executive. Richard Ayub.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize Richard had a media background.
Yeah, he had a media
He
background.
was an entertainment producer. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so he had zero experience working with the nonprofits and working as an executive director. And they brought him in, and that was something that Bobby decided to do. And he said it was one of the best decisions he's ever made, because the network that he has been great. And he's just kind of dove right into it. And there's a couple of things that he had to learn. And he's learned them really well. They're doing really well. They're they've even exceeded their goals.
I just want to ask a question about your vision for this monument. What do you think it should be known for? What sort of impact should it have on people? Which communities will it impact? How do you think about this long term? What's kind of a vision that you think about?
The number one thing that I think we should focus on right away is awareness. I don't think enough people know about the monument. Like, I will talk to friends and they don't know what I'm talking about. So I really think like spreading the word and letting people know about what this is, so that it can impact a greater amount of people, not just people in West Hollywood or other parts of LA, but the country and the world, because this is something that affects everybody around the world, not just people here in West Hollywood. So I think the experience is very personal. I think we could definitely use a lot of social media. I know how to make really cute like promos too, that are 5 to 10 seconds, that can get people's interest on social media and get them to know. I think word of mouth, like get the board members really involved, and let's come up with like 5 new people every single week that we can bring on board and help spread the word. And press, I mean, I work in the media, and so I think you can get a lot of press, but also control the press. So they're not just writing anything, but have like final say on what they're actually printing about the monument. And then from there, I think when you create that awareness, that's where a lot of the fundraising comes in. I know that Team in Training has done that really well for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Like, they've made Team in Training such a fun experience that so many people want to join, just because it's also social, and it's a way that you can meet people who are on the same wavelength as you, and then you can raise money at the same time, and then you're training for a triathlon or a marathon or a hike or something like that. So they've done a really good job creating awareness more than anything else. And I think from there, they've gotten more and more donations. So I'd probably start there.
Why will it resonate with people?
I think it'll resonate in the way that we talk about it. I think that you have to approach it differently for a different audience, because some people have actually lost loved ones from AIDS, but then some people have no idea what it is, or they think it's some kind of disease from the 80s or 90s. They don't really know that it's still current, or the impact that it can have on other people's the world. So I think it's two different approaches. I think you're targeting a certain group of people one way with your stories, and they're very like compelling, and then you're targeting another generation in another way, to make it a lot more interesting to them, so that they talk about AIDS. Or like I was even thinking, you go to schools and little kids are talking about it, or little kids are drawing monuments, or little kids are talking about their experiences. And I don't know, I think you got to start like kind of like grassroots, in our area, and then I think it will spread.
One of my questions specifically for you is, unlike some of our other candidates, you don't have a sort of direct knowledge connection to this community.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a West Hollywood resident.
Yeah.
You're not, you haven't been, I think, actively involved in the HIV and AIDS community or in the ASO, so then you have some connections. So how would you attack that situation? How do you think you'd be able to serve those purposes? Because our ED is dealing with that community. Those communities, is a lot of them. The city of West Hollywood, the ASOs, organizations that are involved in the AIDS and HIV, and so forth. So how would you approach that challenge?
Well, I could definitely move and start there. I live in my Playa Vista bubble right now, but I'm open to moving. I think I'm like, if I ended up getting this job, for me, it's like I'm educating myself as I'm going along too. Like I can't come in pretending I know everything. I don't. But I've also been in that position with the Institute of Neuroinnovation. I didn't know anything about brain health, and I'm very active in that world now. And so I think I just immerse myself into everything that I'm interested and passionate about. So if this is something that comes my way and I get this opportunity, then I'm going to want to know everyone and everything about the organization. That's just the kind of person I am. And I'm very goal oriented. So if we set like short-term and long-term goals, I'm just very tenacious about like making sure we exceed them. And so that's where I come from. I can't speak about my own personal experience with HIV, but that doesn't mean I don't understand it, if that makes sense.
So part of this obviously is politics.
Yeah.
We're dealing with the city of West Hollywood primarily, then the county of LA, which has been a substantial donor as of late.
Mm-hmm.
We just got a $250,000 grant from the state. So how do you have experience in the political arena? And how would you approach that?
I have friends who are in the political area, and so I would have to reach out to them and really see how they can help me. I've just found that when the cause means something, like I've found that my circle of friends and family just really step up. So if there's something I need, people have come. Every time we have had any kind of fundraising goal with any organization, if I've reached out to family and friends, we've always exceeded the goal. Like it's never been under, and it's because there's so much support. So I know people in politics, so I would go straight to them first, to see who they can connect me with.
Super.
Yeah.
Questions, guys?
Yeah, I know you talked a little bit about the technology side of things, but can you still elaborate on it a little bit more and maybe talk about, aside from email and texting, what sort of technology do you use, even outside of Google spreadsheets, to like just streamline, automate your life, get real processes in place so that it can relieve you from some of the little things and maybe help you focus on some of the medium to big size things?
Yeah, I was talking to you before about that. Like most of the stuff that I've done to streamline has been on Google Docs. That's pretty much all I've really needed to do so far. Because we have, like with the Institute of Neuroinnovation, we already have somebody who handles that area. I don't need to handle that area. So I think it's something that I would need to learn. No, it's
I'm
fine.
letting the board know what the questions are.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
So, I mean, one other sort of broad aspect here is nonprofit board governance. We're a nonprofit. We have an active board of directors with a lot of successful, strong personalities. We have a committee structure. And I guess, have you had experience working in that environment, and how do you sort of envision yourself in a leadership role in that type of an environment?
Well, I think with your board, it's very much like a team. I don't think there's any one leader. I would probably be the one that would help to organize a lot of things, but I would want to meet each board member one-on-one first before anything, just so that I can make a proper introduction, but also so I can find out what they're envisioning and see like what their strengths are and where they want to be active and where they don't want to be involved. And then that way we have like a meeting, you're having a brainstorming meeting, but I also know something about each individual person. And in terms of dealing with different personalities, I've done that all my life. I mean, in entertainment, you definitely deal with a lot of different types of personalities. And I think it's just about having emotional intelligence and just knowing that, no one's perfect. And you look at people at their strengths and you just try to make the best of that situation. I'm not a kind of person that holds on to anything too long. So if things go wrong, and things definitely go wrong, I kind of go, the past is past. We don't want to make those mistakes again, but I really let things go and move forward. So I like to keep things very calm and present when I'm doing any kind of leadership. And I'm very much drama free. Like that's definitely something that I'm not interested in at all. But I like to resolve things quickly.
The fact that there's going to be a project management orientation here, we're fabricating, installing a monument here.
Mm-hmm.
And also dealing with vendors on the digital side. What's your background in that area?
So most of the things that I've done for the entertainment industry has been project by project. So even though it hasn't been creating any kind of a monument, it's always been, each project is its own thing with its own people and people that I have to deal with each individual project. So that's really been my experience with it. It's been like a management role and dealing with different clients and dealing with different personalities and putting everything together and having the day-to-day operations of it, but then also having the big picture.
As a producer?
As a producer, but also as a manager, because for a lot of the entertainment jobs that I've had, I've also had to do a lot of the marketing and the promotion and wear a lot of different hats.
How about the budgeting?
Budgeting I've had to do for almost all the shows that I've hosted for entertainment and travel.
How would you put your own stamp on the organization? What do you think that we're not doing now that we should be doing, and how would you come into this board and stir things up and take it in a certain direction under your leadership?
Well, I think your board has done a lot. Like you've pretty much fundraised almost the amount that I think you probably have like 500,000 left or something like that. Like you've already raised so much on your own. So I feel like your board's very strong, especially in the fundraising. I don't know enough about your board to be able to say that what is lacking that I'm going to bring to the table. I would have to really like meet each board member and find that out. But I do think I'm really good at promoting, and I do think I can come in and make sure every single person knows about the AIDS monument. And I'm also like just really good at hustling. So if there's somebody to meet, I will make sure I meet that person and I'll make sure I get that meeting and I'll make sure something good comes out of that meeting, and building relationships. Like the reason why I think we've exceeded a lot of fundraising goals is just because of the relationships that I've already built in the past and continue to build.
So how would you define success in terms of this organization, and how would you make the physical monument in West Hollywood Park a tourist destination?
I think if we could bring Dr. Dre and Magic on board, this would be a really huge success. So, and I don't see why we can't, because I do think they're really big, strong, powerful people in the Los Angeles area, and I think they could have like a huge impact. And I do have connections through the Pump Brothers for Magic Johnson, and then maybe more of an indirect contact to Dr. Dre. But I think that would be great to bring in really big people. You already have a lot of celebrities too that you were mentioning before that are involved, but I think they do make a big difference having their voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be something definitely to focus on. And in terms of the digital part of it, if you're having any of these celebrities as part of that digital part, people are going to want to come to see that monument. You know, they're going to want to hear normal people's stories, but they're also going to want to hear like celebrity stories, because people are so drawn into LA for the celebrities. A lot of people who come here and go to tourist attractions are going for anything that has to do with any kind of celebrity. So whether it's like seeing their home or anything like that. So I think if we could get some celebrities, some key ones involved, I think it would make a huge impact in the monument and get it to be a really big tourist attraction.
What questions do you have of us?
So I know I'm coming in with a very like different background, and I don't know the other people that you've interviewed or what their background is. Is that very concerning for all of you in terms of not having enough experience with any kind of AIDS foundation?
Well, I mean, concerning, I'm not sure I'd use that term.
Okay.
But it's certainly a challenge.
Yeah.
Because you don't know many of the communities that we have to deal with. Anything from West Hollywood City Council members who we have we have strong relationships with, to, as I said, the ASOs, all of the AIDS service organizations that are some of our stakeholders. They're the people who've been, on the ground dealing with this stuff. And maybe one of the challenges you're going to probably have to deal with is they're going to look at you and they say, "Who are you? You're an outsider. What do you know about this issue? Why are you heading up an AIDS monument?" So that's a challenge. So I'm not sure concern is the right word, but sure, it's going to be a challenge. And that's, I think I asked you sort of that question earlier. It's key. I mean, clearly you've got lots of great experience in production, bring a lot to the table, but that's going to be a big challenge for you in that kind of a position.
Okay. And another question I had was, what's the shortest amount of term for this position? Is this something that you're looking for up until when the AIDS monument is up, or is this something that you want to maybe continue afterwards also?
Well, we're not sure yet, in the sense that it depends on the degree to which the city of West Hollywood is willing to take on ownership and responsibility for the digital experience in addition to the physical monument site. They've already committed to managing and maintaining the physical monument, but we haven't yet gotten to the point where we've asked them to manage and maintain the digital experience. So if they say, yes, we will take on the digital experience, we may not have as much of a role post-launch.
It's something that we have to define in the next 2 years,
right?
2+ years to when we actually install. And it's something we still have to negotiate with the city. Initially, when we started this organization, we envisioned that was going to be totally our job. We are going to create content. We're going to collaborate in delivering content. We're going to create the digital, the tech component that will deliver all of this content. It's something we're going to do. So, on the other hand, there's an opportunity that the city, which is going to own this physical piece and it's in their park, might get involved to some degree. So these are things that we got to work through. We haven't defined that, and it may mean that both the executive director position continues, and we need to create, and we probably do need to create a long-term fund so that content is going to be created for the next 10 or 15 years or 20 years, and collaborations with content will continue, and so that the tech component, as you mentioned earlier, can be updated as tech changes over the next decades. So I think it's definitely going to be an ongoing situation. Certainly we want somebody to get us through between now and installation. That's step one, but then there's clearly a potential for step two after that.
Okay. All right. That answers everything. Everything? Probably when I leave, I'll have more questions, but not at the moment.
Well, feel free
At the
to
moment.
send them to us. And,
Okay.
And if we have any more, we'll do the same.
Okay.
We'll send you our questions as well. You don't have to answer all of them, but if there's a couple of questions in here that really stand out to you that you want us to know about, you have the opportunity to do that.
What I really learned after business school was how to create a business plan, a strategic plan. And so that's made life a lot easier because it's much easier to create a plan that makes sense for everybody than to just write down notes about what your goals are. So that's something that I definitely would want to bring to the table here if I got hired.
Do you have a strategic planning experience?
Yes. Yeah.
What kind of?
Mostly in the medical field, but I've created a marketing plan for a company called Patel, and they're based in Israel.
I was asked you about that. They were prominent in your resume. What is that organization?
So they wanted to branch out and come to the U.S. And you know how when you go to CVS now and Walgreens and all those places, you don't need to go see a doctor for a lot of things because you can get you can get a flu shot if you need to. Yeah, basically Minute Clinic, and even just Ralph's. I mean, Ralph's Pharmacy will do a lot of shots for you. So they wanted to kind of break into the U.S. market for people who had diabetes. And so we were creating a business plan for them and a strategic plan for them of when they should launch in the US, if they should launch when they wanted to. And we basically told them after doing that whole thing that they needed to wait to launch because some of the numbers weren't fitting right. And so, and now they're actually coming in the US. So they did wait a little while, not too long, but they did wait, and they had a couple of other teams work on their projects. So basically in business school for one term, you work with a company. And I really I wanted to go to Israel. So I was like, I'm going to pick a strategic company there. So that's where that came from.
How did you like it?
I loved it. It turned out to be my favorite country.
Where were they located? In Tel Aviv or?
They had some offices there, but they were located further north. But then we just ended up touring around everywhere in Israel.
Any other questions, you all?
No.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you
All right,
so
thank
much.
you.
We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for
time and
having
your
me.
thoughts
Thank
and
you.
ideas.
All right, thanks so much. Thank you. Oh, that tastes good. There's fruit in it. Yeah. That tastes really good. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's really
sure.
nice to
Really
meet
nice
you.
to meet you too.
Nice to see you again. Thanks for coming by.
Great seeing you.
Great seeing you too. Thank you. Thank you. See you. Okay. Bye.
Yeah, right out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
So now we turn off
Yes.
so we can start talking.
We must end